Afternoon, Salome B here, and we're going to talk about population control in SSM 200, and that's called the Henry Kissinger Report. Henry Kissinger was a criminal, a war criminal. He also is a Jewish refugee, and he was a Republican. He was the Secretary of State under Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. Now, in order to protect U.S. commercial interests, the Kissinger Report cited a number of factors that interrupt the smooth flow of materials from less developed countries. Now, what that means is whatever undeveloped country that the United States is doing business with or getting resources from, they have an interest in controlling their population. So that is evidence that population control is in effect. And the nations that are targeted by population control efforts is India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nigeria, Mexico, Indonesia, Brazil, the Philippines, Thailand, Egypt, Turkey, Ethiopia, Colombia, Uganda, and the U.S. Used the UN to orchestrate this. Now, let's go into the Kissinger Report. According to the Kissinger Report, elements of implementation of programs include the legalization of abortion, financial incentives for countries to increase their abortion, sterilized, and contraception use rates, indoctrination of children, and mandatory population control and coercion of other forms, such as withholding disaster and food aids in less developed countries implement population control programs. So, in layman's term, these programs, they had to legalize abortion. They had to coerce and withhold disaster and food aid from certain countries that would not participate in population control. Okay, the Kissinger Report also specifically declared that the United States was to cover up government population control activities and avoid charges of imperialism. So the United States has to cover up the fact that they are using population control, that they are doing it on a scale. The UN and various organizations, the Pathfinder Fund, Planned Parenthood Foundation, and the Population Council. Between these three organizations, they are using population control tactics. So what does the Kissinger Report expose? NSSM 20 is critically important to pro-life workers all over the world. It exposes the unethical motivations and methods of population control movement. What's the purpose of the report? To maintain access to the mineral resources of less developed countries. The report states that the U.S. economy will require large and increasing amounts of minerals from abroad, less developed countries. That gives the U.S. enhanced interest in the political, economic, and social stability of supplying countries. So basically, whatever countries that is supplying the United States has an interest in controlling their population. The Kissinger Report, the document was published shortly after the first major international population conference. The U.S. Secretary and Overseas Interests took place in Buckhurst. The CIA was involved in this as well. The Department of State Defense and Agriculture is a part of population control as well. The report was made public when it was declassified and was transferred to the U.S. Archives. The Henry Kissinger Report is the fundamental document on the U.S. government population control and is posted on the USAID website. So that's where you can find the population control document, that it is true that the United States is actually controlling populations. They control their own population. So what programs should be designed? Designing programs with financial incentives for countries to increase their abortion, sterilization, and contraceptive use rates, paying women to have abortions. For example, China, the U.S. funded the UN Population Fund, April 2017, has donated more than $100 million to China's population control program. China financed 12 million computer complexes specifically to monitor the population program, trained Chinese population control officials. So the United States paid into this fund, and Donald Trump has just gotten rid of this population control fund. Now, during China's one-child policy, they have aborted more children under the one-child policy. During the 1995 to 1997, 250,000 Peruvian women were sterilized, refused aid if women did not want to be sterilized. The strategy of the Henry Kissinger Report so why do they need to force abortions? And the Kissinger Report says young people are much more to challenge imperialism and the world's power structure, so the numbers should be kept low. Young people can be persuaded to attack the legal system. This is why during population control, they need to have a certain amount of abortions, because they do not want young people to challenge the system. Now, and during population control, the NSSM report also talks about indoctrination. Indoctrinating children's language of these countries with anti-natalist propaganda. So they use anti-natalist propaganda. They change the attitudes of the next generation, those who are now in elementary school or younger. They design and instigating propaganda programs and sexual education curriculum, withholding disaster and food aid unless a targeted country implements population control programs. Throughout the implementation process, the United States must hide its tracks and disguise its government population control programs as altruistic. So population programs, population control organizations like Planned Parenthood, they will make it look like, or they'll make it look altruistic, which means they'll make it look like they're giving to a country that's undeveloped. They'll make it seem like they're giving things, and they're really not. They're over there to control the population. So more than 19 million black babies have been aborted since Roe versus Wade. 36% of all abortions were performed on African American women in 2014. That's population control. Now, population control may involve culling, translocation, or manipulation of the reproductive capability. The growth of population may be limited by environmental factors such as food and other things. Now, there is another thing that they're doing under population control, and that's when they're trying to indoctrinate your children with the same-sex marriage propaganda. They're using population control methods under that, because there is an article when Obama went to Uganda. It's a thing where his mission was to export same gay rights overseas to places like Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. Now, the Obama administration, they used dollars to leverage with certain countries to stop them from discriminating on gay people. And what they would do is refuse aid to those countries like Latin America, Mexico, Uganda, if they were against LGBTQ communities. And what they were using was what the Henry Kissinger population control people do. They stop aid if you don't accept it. They put sanctions on certain countries that don't accept it. And certain African countries have religion that they deal with, and it may be against their religion to partake or let their country partake in something like that. But if you're using population control devices, how do we know that you're not trying to control the population with this stuff? And the fact that a Henry Kissinger report is out about population control, it's being done. It's being done. And when you don't want to follow these population control tactics, they take away your aid, or they want to indoctrinate your children. They want to persuade you to get a lot of abortions, accept different kinds of culture, like where it's a new family structure. You know, this is all population control. And I just wanted to read a couple of things about it, because I could not find anything on population control until I did some research, and I found the Henry Kissinger report. So what I just read to you is the Henry Kissinger report. Henry Kissinger was a Jew. He came from the Nazi era. He escaped the Nazi regime, and him and his parents came to America, and he was the Secretary of State. And he wrote this Henry Kissinger report, the NSSM 200. So population control is in fact in effect, and it's not going anywhere. It's everywhere. So the fact that we have a group of people that want to change the family structure, that's population control right there. Because when you start messing with reproduction, the man and the woman in the household, that is population control. because that has to do with reproduction. So, the fact that they are pushing this stuff on undeveloped countries and also in America, people need to wake up, because that's exactly what's going on. They are trying to change and control the population. And it's best for people to know about this so they can see the tactics and get away from it. Do not join in the tactics of population control. Tell me